Hey there, Dr. Brad here from Kids Eating Broccoli Podcast, drellisor.com. Today's topic is, can I just give my kids probiotics or prebiotics? And why I love living like a caveman, and I don't mean eating big hunks of pterodactyl meat. So we're going to fire through a couple things today. And what I wanted to talk about first was probiotics, because you may or may not have heard me speak before and share about how probiotics often maybe aren't the best idea for your overall health, for your kids' health, even though we know that gut problems can really be a cause of, chronic systemic inflammation and autoimmunity and brain inflammation, difficulty with behavior, paying attention, sitting still, all the things we associate with ADHD, as well as a bunch of other chronic illnesses which are significantly on the rise in our childhood population. And when we have gut problems, leaky gut most commonly is called, we know that what goes along with that is a microbiome imbalance, or what's called dysbiosis. And so this concept of the gut being our second brain, the biome, the bacteria being so important, that's not new. It's been known for a while. And it's caused, among other things, this explosion of a probiotic market in the marketplace. And the idea is that we figured out what some of the beneficial bacteria are. And so if you can take those supplementally, it'll help to heal your gut, balance your gut, make your gut work better. And then ideally you get all the benefits from that. Here's my difficulty with that. That understanding, like a lot of things that we do as humans, was based on a limited viewpoint and a limited picture of what was really going on and what really happens in our gut. I mean, first of all, we're discovering that our gut should not be called our second brain, because it's actually continuous with our other brain. It's just all part of the same. Secondly, what we're also finding out is that what we thought we knew about bacteria, funguses, viruses, and the biome as a whole was a very narrow view and a very limited picture based on some premises and some foundations that had been built for years about the germ theory and what makes us sick. Long story short, what we're now discovering is the most vital feature of a healthy gut ecosystem is diversity. And a diversity, what we're talking about, is tens of thousands of species of bacteria. That doesn't mean tens of thousands of little bacteria. Tens of thousands of different species of bacteria, hundreds of thousands of species of parasites, over 1 million species of funguses and yeasts, and an uncountable amount of viruses. So having a good diversity, much like a rainforest or a healthy natural ecosystem, each of the different parts, the different species and different types of species, have their own roles they play. And they have built-in natural checks and balances to help keep the system as a whole in balance. Now, we've gone a long and a big way out of alignment with how this naturally would work in the natural world. And this is why I say, I love living like a caveman. And I don't, wear animal skins and, whatever. Those old stories, beat my wife over the head with a thing and drag her with hair or any of that stuff, right? Nothing like that. But what I mean is that because as humans, we've been living on this planet for tens to hundreds of thousands of years, and in essentially a similar format to how we are genetically. And almost all of that time, we've lived in this natural symbiotic and beautiful symphonic interplay with our natural environment. Most of human history, we have not lived indoors, in these walls. Most of human history, we haven't washed our stuff, we haven't sterilized everything, we haven't taken medications, and all these things that have thrown our biodiversity out the window. We also, for most of human history, were eating food that grew in healthy, rich, deep, diverse ecosystems themselves. And so living like a caveman, what I mean is in terms of how we interact with our natural surroundings, how often we spend time in different ecosystems, breathing deeply, getting our feet and our hands in the soil, spending time under the sky. And these things are so vital to the health, believe it or not, of our microbiome. We get a lot of our input of viruses, of funguses, of bacteria through breathing. in different environments and through the skin and those type of interactions and relationships we have. Petting our dogs and our cats that have been rolling around outside. These are all important ways to get that diversity up and going. So back to probiotics and even prebiotics, I mentioned that too. I really, in most cases, recommend that we don't give our kids probiotics, that we don't take probiotics. And there are certain circumstances that I've heard, a lot of people suggest are good, like if you just had to take antibiotics or if you just had a big metal exposure of some sort or these type of things or lots of travel. And I would still hesitate because probiotics as a supplement, the most diverse I've ever seen is 24 species, right? So I mentioned you need tens of thousands. Like they estimate between 20 and 40,000 species in there, all in this fine balance. You don't want to be just dumping 10, 12, 24 species on top of that over and over and over again. I mean, that would throw things more towards a monoculture and away from diversity. So we don't want to be doing that. If you need to and want to, up your probiotic, up your beneficial bacteria intake, then much better off eating something wild fermented. So fermented, cabbage or kimchi or these type of things, even pickles that are naturally fermented, are going to go a much longer way in helping rebalance and get the system back in place. Because certainly if you end up having to take antibiotics for some reason, or under a lot of stress of travel or some sort of mold or heavy metal exposure, you want to do what you can to mitigate that. And so, but upping your level of naturally wild fermented foods is going to be a great way to do that. And then get yourself out into nature. Get in the soil, pull weeds, dig around, go by a stream, get into a wet forest, go by the ocean, whatever you can do. Breathe deeply, spend time there, and let nature sort of wash over you like it has been for most of human history. So I believe that is what I wanted to cover today. And prebiotics. So prebiotics similarly, because what we want is that diversity. Now, I don't mean don't eat foods with prebiotics. We want to eat a variety of foods with good fibers and all that kind of stuff. But similarly, if you have something out of balance in your gut microbiome and you then feed it with these prebiotics, which are basically food for bacteria and certain funguses, then you actually, because you're trying to manipulate it sort of from the outside, especially if you don't have that consciousness of that great diversity, you could just as easily be pushing things out of balance as much as pushing things into balance. Oh, and I did think of one other thing. So I do have some people that hear about this and they say, but I, started giving my kid probiotics and they felt so much better. Or I started taking probiotics myself and I felt so much better. And totally hear that, not uncommonly, and it makes sense to me, because if your biome is so out of balance, so many things running around in there that are running rampant in the place, then adding these bacteria to the mix at least helps return some level of balance and diversity and good checks and balances to the system. So there can be some uses for it, potentially, though you're still going to be better off, in my opinion, with those wild ferments. So if you are like, I'm not letting go of my probiotics, then I would recommend don't take them every day. Take them sporadically here and there after, special stresses and so forth. But better yet, add wild fermented foods. Better yet, get yourself outside into diverse ecosystems as much as possible. Get your hands in the soil. Put your feet on the ground. Breathe deep through your nose. So much better to get it the way that we've been doing for tens or hundreds of thousands of years, living like cave people, outdoors, immersed and embraced by nature and our surroundings. All right, you guys take care. This is Dr. Brad signing off, and I'll see you later.